A star was born today. 2024 Giro d'Italia, stage 17, and we're up here on the Brocon Pass. We did this climb twice today, and on the second time up, it was Georg Steinhauser, the 22-year-old, riding in his third year with EF Education First, Easy Post, secures his first professional victory, and it's a World Tour victory. Solo for 34.1, I think, we call it 34 kilometers, nearly at the top of the final climb of the Brocon, the descent, and then that final push up here again to where we're standing now at 1,600 meters. A huge day out for the German and for EF Education Easy Post, who was fighting and fighting and fighting in this Giro d'Italia to come home with something, always on the attack for a stage win, whether that been with Esteban Chavez or Michael Valgren. Well, it was their 22-year-old rider, one of the youngest riders to pull off a stage win at the Giro d'Italia in some time. Now let's take it back on this 159 kilometer stage, a stage in the Dolomites, one of those stages that we love. These are the beautiful mountains up here in the northeast of Italy, in the Alps, separating Italy from Austria. They began today, beautiful sunny conditions like we have now, but the day was not without rain. It rained on the riders today, but nothing like we had yesterday, thankfully so. A bit of history there because we began right there on the foot of the Passo Sella, and it was there that Marco Pantani took the pink jersey in the famous 1998 Giro d'Italia. He would go on to win again the double at the Tour de France in the 1998 Tour de France. And then it was the Passo Brocon, and that's where basically Gino Bartali was discovered. Tour de France winner both before and after the Second World War, and Giro d'Italia great, an Italian hero. But let's focus on the escape, because an escape of 10 riders went on that first climb. And that first climb, it was a doozy, going up the Passo Sella to 2,244 kilometers. 10 riders make the move, and names you'll know well by this point in the Giro d'Italia. Nicola Conci, also in there, Davide Ballerini, of course Steinhauser, Marco Frigo, Nairo Quintana, Julian Alaphilippe, Gabriel Zabier, Attila Valter, Giulio Pellizzari, and Damiano Caruso. Those 10 riders would fight for the majority of the day. Only one rider from them would be able to fight on for victory because he made his move, dropping Gabriel Zabier at the top before this final pass, and I was standing outside my car. I got some footage of them racing by. From there, solo, the descent, and back up to this point here. Now back in the car behind, he had former Danish professional Matty Breschel giving him the time checks, and of course they were worried about what was going on. We had the feeling UAE Team Emirates would let an escape go, and that was the feeling also yesterday, but it was Team Movistar that did all the work trying to set things up for Nairo Quintana, and that eventually set up Tadej Pogacar for the stage victory. Well, today it was DSM and also the American rider Kevin Vermarke, who's doing such great work for Romain Bardet. So we thought, wow, this race may come back together, and again, not due to UAE Team Emirates, but due to another team. And today, instead of Movistar, it was going to be Team DSM. Well, Steinhauser was getting the checks from the team car all the time, and he said it knew at one point, coming up here to the top of this Brocon climb, that he knew he had the victory in hand because the gap was hovering around 3 minutes or so. He dealt with all the final escapees. They were lingering out down there along the road. But back behind, we turned our attention to the favorites group because it was DSM, as I mentioned, doing the pacemaking down the descent of the Passo Brocon, steam engine down that pass, all the way down to this little third categorized climb kicker, and that's where they tried to launch Romain Bardet. And you would see that right away, Tadej Pogacar was on it. And now I think, and what Kevin Vermarke thought too, when I spoke with him after he showered here at the top of the climb, he didn't think Tadej Pogacar was marking. He didn't even know they probably had a gap behind him, but it was Pogacar there with Vermarke and Bardet, and it appeared that Tadej would not let him go. And in fact, they didn't let him go, and the escape was almost caught at that point, and Steinhauser's day was almost done at that point. And then Bardet and everyone else sat up and reshuffled, and at that point Steinhauser had his little bit of freedom to go over that third categorized climb. He was in there with Gabriel Zabier and was able to make it to the final 2 passes up the Brocon climb before ditching his last escapee companion to fight on here to victory. Now let's turn our attention once again back to the GC group, because once they got here to the final climb up to the Brocon for the final time, that's when things started to get interesting, because DSM was no longer leading. It was Team Ineos who was really dropping the hammer and protecting Geraint Thomas, hoping to make up that 22 seconds to Danny Martinez, who moved up to second overall, pushing Geraint Thomas down to third overall yesterday. Ben Swift, what a motor, a veteran rider, the British rider, driving it hard. We also saw Narvaez in their winner stage one so many days ago. Feels like a lifetime when he had that stage win and the pink jersey. Those two guys did their work, and then as a Rensman, he must have got the team orders after yesterday's little mix-up where he rode free, leaving Thomas behind. He was working for Geraint Thomas, perfect teamwork. Geraint Thomas, though, at one point had to deal with Danny Martinez because Martinez lights it up. He attacks up the road. It draws out Tadej Pogacar, and the whole race explodes. And at that point, Geraint Thomas, everyone else is looking at each other, and the GC group starts to get thinned down. One of the biggest victims of those attacks was Ben O'Connor, 2.8 out. He was cracked, and Martinez was going. His attack there was at 2.5, and Poggi marked it, leaving Thomas Bardet, Tiberi Rubio. Also, Zana was dropped from Jaco Alula, so his GC position was in question, losing time on the GC. Pog was at front. Rafael Majka was working his way back. Tadej Pogacar's teammate, always there, the last man in the mountains. But before Rafael Majka could get back up front, it was Pogacar who launched. 2.1 kilometers to go, lighting it up. He gets a gap right away. Up front, the gap to our Steinhauser, the lone solo rider, was at 2 minutes. Steinhauser knew he was going to pull it off. We had Tiberi, Martinez, Thomas, Bardet, Rubio. Bardet was looking bad. He was looking bad all day, all over his bike, bad form on the bike, but he was able to manage with that group. As I mentioned, Zana was gone, 1.4 kilometers to go. Tadej was free. He was gaining time, and at the finish, Tadej Pogacar, if we're looking at the stage results, it was 124 back to Tadej Pogacar from Steinhauser. 18 seconds Tadej put in on the rest of his GC rivals, and he took up the second place, bonus seconds, 10, 6, and 4 in the line, so he would have gained 10 seconds. In addition to the 18 seconds, making 24 seconds, and Danny Martinez picks up third in that group with Thomas, Tiberi, Rubio, and Bardet. And Thomas's teammate or Rensman back at 155, 13 seconds back off the Tiberi group, and that's important for that white jersey fight. Tiberi's looking more comfortable in the white jersey, also gaining ground on Ben O'Connor, but not leapfrogging into Ben O'Connor's place. Ben O'Connor finished 2:23 back, and Filippo Zana back at 2:27. So if we're looking at the GC, is Tadej Pogacar still on top with a whopping 7:42 over Danny Martinez. Geraint Thomas 8:04, 9:47 back to the Australian rider from Perth, Superbot Ben O'Connor, who maintained his fourth overall. Antonio Tiberi 10:29 back, so moving closer to Ben O'Connor, just within reach, maybe 45 seconds. Rensman further back from Tiberi, 11 minutes and 10 seconds, and Bardet there. Rubio moved up one spot today. Zana dropping back one spot, setting 9th overall. Now, we spoke with some of the riders when they got over the line. Thomas is always the go-to guy when the race finishes because Tadej Pogacar, I shot some brief footage of him as he rolled over the finish line, looking satisfied with the day. He rode 2 behind the podium, so you don't get to do an interview with him right away. We stopped Geraint Thomas there shortly after the finish line, was able to speak with him. He was feeling better after yesterday's day, but he's still concerned about that 22 seconds, and they got to do something about it. Tomorrow's a flat sprinter stage. The next day is another summit finish day, and then stage 20 is the Monte Grappa climb day. Ben O'Connor dejected, and we spoke with him after he showered. He came back out, and he didn't really even want to speak, but he did. Ben O'Connor's super nice guy, spoke with us, explained that he's having problem breathing in these days. We noticed it on Sunday on the Motoligno climb that Tadej Pogacar won up there, the highest elevation climb of this year's Giro d'Italia. And we noticed it again yesterday. Ben O'Connor seems to be suffering some sort of breathing problem, suffering out there on the day, but still able to maintain his composure, but not quite what he wanted in this 2024 Giro d'Italia. And we're looking at Kevin Vermarke because I waited for Kevin to come out of the showers as well. Super pleased with how he rode today because he was setting up all that work for Romain Bardet. He was the last rider of Team DSM to do the work, and he was the one attacking with Romain Bardet when Tadej Pogacar was following. I said, Kevin, I think Tadej was marking you, and he laughed about that. And in fact, he was marking Bardet, but I don't even know if Tadej was marking Bardet. He was just kind of following the moves and probably didn't even realize there was a gap behind. But the point is that Kevin Vermarke, the US rider, is going so strong, experience in the Tour de France, but here getting his experience in the 2024 Giro d'Italia. But if we're talking about experience, we're talking about young riders, well, it's all about Georg Zimmermann today because 22 years old, EF Education First Easy Post, needed the win, and he did the job. His dad is brother-in-law to Jan Ullrich. Jan Ullrich's sister was married to his dad for a short time. Now they're divorced. Relationship to him, spent a lot of time in Lucca growing up, back and forth between Germany and Lucca in Italy, speaks Italian, has Italian friends, and just over the moon with his victory. Super pleased with the problems he had earlier this spring, and he comes here, the Giro d'Italia. He fights in a few of the stages, fights the other day, Motolineo, doesn't give up. Tadej compliments him the other day on the Motolineo climb, and he's back again. He's back in style. He's back with victory in stage 17 of the 2024 Giro d'Italia.